She wasn't talking in her sleep. She was screaming, thrashing, calling out the same name over and over, like her voice was trying to expose the one secret no one else could see. "Thomas, please stop!" That's what the guard heard. That's what made him run. He didn't wait for orders. He didn't wait for backup. He stormed the room. And what he found inside wasn't a nightmare. It was Camilla's adult son, cornering a 10-year-old girl, and a princess too scared to fight anymore. But before we show you the exact second the guard slammed him into the wall, and how he shattered Camilla's defense with one brutal command, drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from, tap like, hit subscribe, and turn on the bell icon. Because this story, though, isn't about protocol. It's about what happens when a child cries the wrong name in the middle of the night, and the right man hears it. Windsor Castle was built to withstand war. Its walls, its guards, its legacy, but nothing in its 1,000-year stonework could stop what echoed through the North family wing just after 2:18 a.m. It began faint, like the echo of a dream trying to escape a locked room. Sergeant Asher Dunley heard it first. He was stationed outside the northeast quarter, assigned to overnight rotation near the family suites. Interior post, no tourists, no formal drills, just the silence of a sleeping palace and the long, polished hallways that needed watching. He wasn't new to the job. 38, Coldstream Guard, Afghanistan veteran turned inner wing detail, selected for his steadiness, his restraint. A man who followed rules so well, they trusted him with the doors nearest the next line of succession. So when he heard the scream, he didn't move at first. It was faint, muffled, like a child's voice, carried through thick upholstery and sealed wood. One scream could be a nightmare, nothing more. But then came another. "Stop! No! Please stop!" Asher's body straightened, like a wire pulled taut. This time it wasn't directionless. It came from the family hallway. Narrower than the public wings, less echo, more exact. He took 2 steps forward, eyes scanning the lined doors. Then it came again, clearer this time. "Thomas, please stop!" And just like that, the palace's silence fractured. Asher snapped toward the 3rd door down, Princess Charlotte's private suite, a child's quarters, no aides assigned overnight. Lights dimmed, curtains drawn. No reason anyone should be inside but her. But she hadn't just screamed. She'd said a name. Thomas. Asher's breath locked in his throat. Thomas Parker Bowles, Camilla's son. An adult, no formal title, no royal status, no clearance to be in a child's room, let alone at this hour. Asher raised one hand to his earpiece, pressing gently. "Interior 3 to dispatch. Possible distress in the North family wing. Can anyone confirm movement near Suite 7? Silence. Then a quiet reply. "See." Negative, Interior 3. No movement registered. Thermal clean. They hadn't heard it. Stone walls, velvet carpets, soundproofing from a different century, which meant one thing: he was the only one who had. Then the 3rd scream hit, ragged, choked. Like a child who didn't care who heard anymore, Asher didn't wait. No further calls, no protocol hesitations. He turned on his heel, sprinting down the hall toward her room, hand already reaching for the emergency override pin near his waist. Orders could come later. Right now, someone had to get to that child, and he was going through that door, with or without permission. The corridor felt narrower as Asher ran, like the air itself recoiled from what was happening behind that door. Princess Charlotte's room. He reached it in seconds. Solid oak, reinforced lock. A royal child's quarters were supposed to be untouchable at night, but when his hand hit the doorknob, it didn't turn, locked from the inside, a clear violation. He knocked hard once, voice firm and clear. "Princess Charlotte, ma'am, are you safe?" No reply, just a sudden thump, flesh on floorboards, followed by a muffled scuffle and a male voice snarling, "Quiet! Stop shouting. That was it. Asher dropped his shoulder and slammed into the door. Once, twice. The latch cracked with a splintered crunch and the door blew inward. Darkness. The bedside lamp was on the ground, flickering against the carpet. The bedsheets were torn across the frame, pillows spilled onto the floor like they'd been kicked. And then, in the left corner of the room, beside the mattress, Charlotte, pressed sideways against the bedpost, nightdress pulled at the shoulder, hair tangled across her face, skin blotched and red. Her wrist was twisted up above her head, gripped by Thomas Parker Bowles, who was half kneeling, one hand on the bed frame, the other pinning her in place. He turned, squinting into the light, eyes bloodshot, mouth curled. "What the hell?" His voice caught when he saw the red uniform. Sergeant Dunley. Rifle slung, boots planted, chest rising. "Get out!" Thomas barked, trying to rise. "This is family business." That's when Charlotte broke free, ripping herself away and stumbling toward the door, bare feet scraping the carpet, voice shaking. "Please, don't let him." She didn't finish the sentence, because she didn't need to. Asher stepped forward, silent, and placed himself directly between them, his frame cut across the room like a wall dropped from the ceiling. He didn't touch Charlotte. He didn't raise his rifle. He simply shifted the strap across his chest, tightening it just slightly. And Thomas knew. "Wait," he muttered, voice suddenly calmer. "It's not what it looks like. She was dreaming, screaming. I came to help. She overreacted." Asher didn't respond. He tapped a coded signal on the clasp at his collar. Level 2, Child Protection Breach, Locked Location, Known Adult, Screaming Minor, Confirmed Contact. Thomas tried to chuckle, adjust his shirt. "She's always dramatic. She gets like this after—" "Sir," Asher said quietly. His hand hovered near the rifle. "Step away. Now." Thomas Parker Bowles wasn't a soldier, but he knew when a room had turned against him. And yet, he still tried to control it. "She's having an episode," he said, smoothing his cuff like he hadn't just been caught pinning a child to her own bed. "Ask Camilla. She calls my name when she's scared. She had a nightmare. I came in to calm her down." Behind Asher, Charlotte let out a hoarse, broken whisper. "No, he was on me. He wouldn't let me go." That one sentence tore through the air like it belonged in a courtroom, not a bedroom. Thomas stiffened. His eyes darted to the door, then to the open corridor behind the guard. He moved, quick, casual but calculating, toward the exit. A retreat, dressed up like a misunderstanding. "Look, this is absurd. I'll explain it to your superiors. You've clearly misunderstood. Let me speak to my mother." He brushed past the bed, headed straight for the open hall. Asher moved with him, one step, one pivot, blocking the path completely, hand to the side. Rifle not raised, but ready. Voice like iron filings beneath silk. "You will not leave this room." Thomas blinked. "Excuse me?" Charlotte made a soft, hiccuped sound behind the guard, like someone trying to erase themselves into silence. Asher didn't look back at her. He didn't need to. He kept his gaze on the man in front of him, steady, flat. Then, without turning, he asked, "Mom, are you hurt?" A pause. The kind of pause that carries weight far heavier than words. Then, soft. Too soft. "Yes." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't screamed. It was a child saying the one word adults keep telling her to avoid. Thomas forced a laugh, thin and full of teeth. "This is theatre. You guards love it, don't you? All red jackets and drama. She asked me to check on her. She was panicking. I held her arms down to stop her from flailing. It's basic caretaking." Charlotte whispered, "I screamed for help." Thomas looked like he'd been slapped. Asher's jaw didn't tighten. His fingers didn't twitch, but something behind his eyes shifted, from concern to calculation. Not emotion. Assessment. Thomas didn't know it yet, but the rules had already changed, and the guard, standing in front of him, was no longer waiting for permission. The castle alarms reached the senior quarters 6 seconds too late. Camilla arrived in 3. Her footsteps thundered down the corridor before her voice did. A flurry of silk, fury, and entitlement barreled into the doorway. Eyes blazing, hair dishevelled from sleep, robe trailing behind her like a storm cloud. "What?" she snapped, breath slicing through the air. "Is the meaning of this?" Her gaze swept the room, the broken door, the overturned lamp. Charlotte's trembling frame behind the guard, Asher's squared shoulders, and her son, shirt creased, hair wild, flush rising in the collar. It took her half a second to choose a side. "Thomas." Her voice softened instantly. "Are you hurt? What did she do?" Thomas stepped toward her like a drowning man spotting land. "Mother, she had a nightmare. She lashed out. I tried to calm her." Camilla's eyes snapped to Charlotte. "You woke the entire castle for this," she spat. "Again with these stories? Again with these theatrics?" Charlotte folded, hands flying to her ears, shaking harder. Asher stepped immediately into Camilla's line of path, voice even but absolute. "Ma'am, do not approach the minor." Camilla recoiled as if slapped. "Excuse me? You do not tell me where I can or cannot stand inside my own granddaughter's room." Asher didn't move. She screamed his name in terror. Camilla laughed, brittle, cruel, disbelieving. "She calls his name in her dreams. She is sensitive, emotional. She gets confused. And you," she jabbed a finger at Asher's chest, "you broke into a sleeping child's room in the middle of the night. You will answer for this." Thomas added fuel with a wounded tone. "He's turned this into some abuse fantasy, Mother. She was panicking. I held her arms to stop her hurting herself." Camilla nodded vigorously. "Exactly. Exactly. Guards like him exaggerate to justify overreach." Behind Asher's shoulder, Charlotte whimpered, "No, no, please stop. He was—" "Stop lying!" Camilla roared. The room froze. Not because of the volume, but because even Thomas flinched. Charlotte recoiled so violently, her back hit the bedpost. Her breath stuttered. Her body folding into itself, pure childhood terror manifesting in real time. Asher didn't raise his voice, didn't move fast, he simply shifted, one silent step, widening the barrier between predator, enabler, and child. "Ma'am," he said, steel coiled beneath calm, "you will not address her like that again." Camilla's jaw dropped. "You dare!" But the hallway behind her had shifted. A gasp. Fast footsteps. A mother running, because someone else had heard the scream. The moment the second scream went out, over the private channel, Catherine had already been moving. She didn't wait for aids. She didn't dress. She didn't knock. She ran. Barefoot, robe flung over her nightclothes, hair still tied from rest, but her face was wide awake. When she reached the hallway outside Charlotte's room, the door was already shattered open. Guards were beginning to cluster near the ends of the corridor, but no one dared enter. Only one man stood inside, between her daughter and whatever had just happened. Sergeant Asher Dunley, and on the other side of him, Thomas. The scene hit her like a blast wave. Charlotte crouched near the far bedpost, shaking violently, a tear-streaked mess of tangled hair and pale arms. Asher planted like a wall in red, Camilla snarling mid-sentence. Thomas flushed, breathing fast, eyes darting. Catherine didn't ask for a report. She didn't speak to Camilla. She walked straight to her daughter and dropped to her knees. "Charlotte," she whispered, voice trembling but low. "Look at me, sweetheart." Charlotte's fingers clawed at her mother's robe, her whole body convulsed, not in sobs, but in that silent, paralyzed panic only children know when they think no one will believe them. Catherine cupped her face, eyes locked. "I'm here. I'm with you. No one's touching you now, but I need you to tell me—" Her voice cracked. "Did he touch you?" Charlotte didn't speak. She just nodded. Once. And then fell into her mother's arms, gasping. Camilla let out a sound of pure disbelief. "Oh, for heaven's sake!" Catherine stood, slowly, deliberately. She didn't raise her voice, didn't shout. She just turned her head toward Camilla and said, "Say that again." Camilla hesitated. Thomas looked suddenly unsure. Catherine's voice dropped into something colder than rage. "Say that my daughter is lying. Say it, and look me in the eyes while you do." Camilla faltered. "I heard her scream his name," Catherine whispered. "I heard it from my room. She didn't cry for help. She cried for him to stop." She looked past Camilla, to Thomas, and her voice, which had cradled children, now cut like a surgeon. "You went into a child's bedroom after midnight, uninvited, and you put your hands on her." Charlotte clung tighter. Catherine knelt again, wrapping her arms around her daughter. Asher remained silent, but when Catherine met his eyes, her words were soft, grateful, final. "Thank you for going in." Prince William didn't walk. He arrived, in motion, flanked by two senior aides who could barely keep pace. His boots hit the marble without pause. His coat was already on, shirt crisp, eyes locked ahead. He hadn't dressed from sleep. He hadn't been sleeping. Charlotte's scream had gone out over the private emergency line 6 minutes ago, his name embedded in the code. He ran. When he turned the corner, the scene waiting for him in the shattered doorway of Suite 7 was worse than he'd imagined. Charlotte, wrapped around her mother's chest, shaking like a fevered bird. Catherine, jaw clenched, arm protectively over her daughter's head. Camilla, mid-sentence, flustered and furious, gesturing toward the guard. Thomas, red-faced, shirt wrinkled, standing far too close to the door, and Sergeant Asher Dunley, statue still, eyes tracking everything. William stopped just past the threshold. He didn't blink. "Sergeant." One word. Asher stepped slightly aside, rifle lowered but firm. "Your Royal Highness," he began, voice like gravel cut with steel. "At 021 I heard screams from Princess Charlotte's quarters. Audible identification of your daughter's voice, calling Thomas Parker Bowles by name and pleading for him to stop. Room was found locked from the inside. Breach executed. Child was found distressed, in physical contact with Mr. Bowles. Resistance was met. Child Protection Level 2 triggered. The minor confirmed physical contact and distress. Guardian response attempted. I maintained position until now." Silence. Charlotte looked up from her mother's shoulder, eyes bloodshot, lips trembling. William's voice dropped to almost nothing. "Charlotte." He knelt down. "Sweetheart, did he come into your room without permission?" She nodded. "Did you ask him to stop?" Another nod. "Did he?" She shook her head violently, squeezing her eyes shut. That was all William needed. He rose to full height and turned, not to Thomas, but to Camilla. Her mouth was already opening. "William, this is a tragic misreading." His voice cut through the corridor like frost. "Stop!" Camilla froze. Thomas stepped forward half a pace. "This is political theatre." William didn't even look at him. He looked at the guard, then his daughter, then back to the man standing like this was all just an inconvenience. And though no orders had yet been spoken, the temperature in the castle dropped 10 degrees because everyone, even Camilla, knew what came next. Thomas's composure cracked first. He turned toward Camilla like she was still the queen of the room, not realizing yet that she no longer commanded its silence. "Come on," he muttered, brushing his hands down his coat. "We're leaving. This is insane. She's unstable. You saw it." He didn't get the rest out, because the moment he stepped forward, Asher blocked him. Not aggressively, not dramatically, just one deliberate pivot, body squared, boots set. "Sir, do not move toward the minor." Thomas scoffed, like a man who hadn't yet realized his legacy was collapsing beneath him. "You think you can shoot me?" he sneered. "Go ahead," Camilla snapped beside him. "Asher, that's enough. Stand down." But the voice that came next wasn't shouting. It was Charlotte's, tiny, cracked. A child trying to peel herself off the wall of trauma. "Don't let him come near me." William's shoulders tensed. Catherine closed her eyes. Asher shifted again, just slightly, and his voice turned to granite. "Sir, step back, or I will use force." Thomas paused, and then, because entitlement always makes the wrong choice, he lunged. Not a wild punch, not a full assault, just an entitled, thoughtless surge forward, a reach past Asher's body as if the guard were an object, not a barrier. He moved like someone trying to grab power that no longer belonged to him. And Asher moved faster. The guard's arm came up and across with surgical control, not to strike, but to pin. He slammed Thomas back against the corridor wall, forearm locked just beneath the collarbone, weight balanced through his boots, rifle angled down but firm. Not violence, not vengeance, just complete, practiced restraint. Thomas howled like it had been a blow. "You're done! You're dead! I'll have your rank for this!" Asher didn't even raise his voice. "You attempted to flee an active safeguarding breach. You disregarded multiple verbal warnings. You moved toward a minor after confirmed distress. You lunged toward her proximity." He pressed harder. "This is now detainment." Camilla lurched forward. "You can't detain him. He's my son." William turned toward her, and this time he didn't use words, just one look, cold, regal, non-negotiable. Camilla stopped, because even she recognized it. The crown had turned. "Escort him," William said. His voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. The two royal security officers who'd just arrived didn't hesitate. One moved to Asher's flank to receive Thomas. The other unclipped a restraint case without speaking. Thomas's confidence cracked like cheap porcelain. "You're detaining me? Based on this? A child's tantrum and a guard's bedtime fantasy?" He turned wild-eyed to Camilla. "Mother, do something!" Camilla stepped forward, snapping at William. "You cannot detain my son in the middle of the night on a child's accusations. This is a procedural disgrace." William didn't even blink. He looked her in the eyes and said, "My daughter's screams woke half the wing." He gestured toward the shattered doorframe. "Your son was inside her bedroom, without clearance, with the door locked. Explain that." Camilla's lips moved, but no sound came. Catherine didn't wait. She stepped forward, arms still wrapped around Charlotte, voice like a quiet knife. "Explain the torn shoulder seam, the red marks on her wrists, the panic, the fact that she didn't call for her father. She didn't call for me." She turned her head just slightly, eyes narrowing. "She called for the one hurting her." Camilla's voice trembled. "She's always been theatrical. You know how she gets. She imagines things." Then came the line that ended her. Charlotte looked up from Catherine's robe, small hands gripping tightly. Tears streamed down her cheeks, and she whispered, "Why won't she believe me?" The silence that followed was unbearable, not because it was long, but because it proved everything. Camilla opened her mouth to speak, and didn't, because not one person in the corridor looked at her anymore with respect, not the guards, not the staff behind her, not even Thomas, who was now being cuffed. The institutional armor that had always protected her had cracked, and all that remained was a woman yelling over a child instead of kneeling with her. William turned. He didn't speak to Camilla. He spoke to the nearest officer. "Escort Her Majesty the Queen Consort to the East Isolation Suite, effective immediately. No movement, no appearances, no access to family wings until further notice." Camilla choked on a breath. "You're isolating me." William didn't respond. Charlotte was already turning her face into Catherine's side. The guard was already returning to post. And the institution, for once, was doing the only thing that mattered, protecting the child. The marble hallway stretched ahead like a tunnel out of a nightmare. Catherine walked slowly, arms wrapped tight around Charlotte's trembling frame. The child clung to her without sound now, past tears, past panic, suspended in that cold, breathless state only trauma delivers. Her fingers wouldn't let go, and Catherine never once asked her to. Prince William walked beside them, one pace behind, hands clenched at his sides. Every few steps, his jaw ticked, as if holding back something volcanic. He hadn't said a word since giving the isolation order. He didn't need to. The weight of his silence said more than fury ever could. Behind them, Sergeant Asher Dunley moved like a shadow. 5 paces back, rifle returned to position, red tunic squared, posture straight as a blade. He wasn't there to escort. He was there because Charlotte had asked him in her own way not to disappear. And he wouldn't. Not until she was safe. When they reached the family medical wing, Catherine slowed near the threshold. A physician was already waiting, pale, anxious, discreet. No questions, just a nod of understanding. Charlotte's head shifted slightly. She looked up toward her father. "Will he come back?" Her voice wasn't frightened. It was exhausted. Like she didn't even believe in promises anymore. William stepped forward. Not as a prince, not as a royal, just as a father. He knelt down, one knee on the stone floor, and placed a hand gently on her arm. "Not while I'm alive." Charlotte blinked, slowly. Then she nodded. Catherine guided her inside. William rose and turned. His gaze met Asher's. A long pause passed between them. The corridor around them remained empty, cleared by unseen staff. Just the 2 men. One born into duty, one who chose it. William spoke quietly. "Sergeant Dunley, sir, you did not overstep. You did not act prematurely. You did not fail your post." Another pause. "You saved my daughter." Asher gave the smallest nod. One only a guard would know meant, "I would do it again." Catherine reappeared just long enough to meet his eyes. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her face was tear-streaked but steady, and her look held the kind of gratitude that outlives medals. Then Charlotte appeared, still wrapped in the same blanket, still barefoot. She leaned into her mother's side, looked up at Asher, and whispered, "Please, stay nearby." Asher bowed his head, low, silent, immovable. The door to the private wing clicked shut, and the child was safe, because the guard had not waited for permission. The eastern sky over Windsor turned from charcoal to lavender. It was just after 5:47 a.m. when the castle exhaled. No alarms, no shouting, no footsteps now. Just the hush that follows a storm people will talk about in whispers for years. Sergeant Asher Dunley hadn't left his post. Not since the incident. Not when the medics arrived. Not when the aides shifted their rotations. Not even when new guards were assigned to cover the corridor. He stood outside the family medical suite, boots aligned with the marble seam, rifle slung in its cradle, posture tall beneath the softening light. He didn't check the time. He didn't adjust his stance. He simply stayed. A stillness so deliberate it rewrote what duty looked like. A few staff passed through the wing, quieter than usual. Some gave nods, others avoided his eyes. Not out of disrespect, but reverence. Because everyone who mattered had read the report. And every single one of them knew who had acted first. A soft click broke the silence. The suite door opened slightly. Catherine emerged, her hair pulled back now, coat wrapped firm around her. She didn't speak at first, just gave him a slow nod, the kind that doesn't belong to royalty, but to mothers who will remember the name of one man for the rest of their lives. Asher returned the nod, expression unchanged. Then, from behind her, came a smaller silhouette. Charlotte. Wrapped in a navy blanket that touched the floor, arms tucked inside, hair brushed back from her face. She didn't run, she didn't wave, she just walked forward, eyes fixed on the man who hadn't left. Asher didn't speak. He didn't break form, but his gaze softened, fractionally. Charlotte stopped a few feet away. She looked up, blinking through the haze of exhaustion, and whispered, "You heard me when no one else did." That was all. No thank you, no tears, just a child speaking truth. Asher didn't reply, not aloud, but his chin dipped once, barely a nod, more of a vow. Charlotte gave the faintest smile, the first hint of one since night broke, then turned and disappeared back inside the suite. The door closed again, and Asher resumed position. No statement issued, no ceremony performed, just a man in red, guarding the silence that should have never been broken. Because for some evils, there is no protocol. There is only the man who refuses to let them happen. Do you think the guard was right to storm the room without orders? Should Camilla have been isolated immediately after defending her son? And what would you have done if you heard a child screaming a predator's name? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every one. Tap like, hit subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss a Royal Guard story. Share this video with someone who believes silence isn't safety. And while you're here, pick one of the videos now on your screen. We'll see you tomorrow, same time with a brand new story.